Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Seddon Comics Comic Book Stash. I'm Lacey, that's Seddon. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all of the YouTubey things. Follow the channel for wonderful pop videos, gaming videos, and the main event, which is us talking shit for a few hours on a Friday night, like you were down the pub with us.
And a little bit of a jump ahead into the future here, but as this will probably be released in the future, I'll be nearer to this. But we're always coming up with, well, I'm going to say new ideas. We're always stealing other people's ideas for things that we can put on our channel. And yeah, I think if at the very least, have a look around and you'll see that there's a varied amount of products at the moment. And I think they're going to continue to get more varied because the more us boys who are under the Renaissance Men banner talk, I think we're finding more and more stuff that we joint love, and I think there's going to be more and more products to come. And the shit
Spin-offs
will all,
everywhere.
you like and subscribe enough, get us enough viewers, we can give up our jobs and we can create this constantly. That would be nice. So
Yeah,
bloody do it,
do it
do
now.
it.
Or the cult will get you.
Yes,
He runs one.
I do. A successful one, depending on when this video is released and how well I'm doing in my cult game that I play on the channel. could be over by the time this episode comes out. Who knows? I could have run that cult into the ground, but not this one. This cult that you are going to join, successful.
So last week we did what we like, dislike, and our thoughts on what makes good heroes. We're doing the same now with villains. Again, this is not going to be a top 5. There's no listing. There's no who our favourites are. That will all come later down the line.
Yeah.
But more of a what is it that we want from our nemesises.
And it's interesting because when you say what we want, there was something when we introed the heroes one with, and you said it there is what makes a good hero. And I was thinking about that before we did this, of going, well, do you go what makes a good villain? Because ultimately, in theory, they can't be a good villain, can they? Because they're the antithesis of good. But even in that, I think we're talking about villains that we want to see more of, or that we think are effective in their villainy role. And that villainy role can be quite wide and diverse, can't it?
Yeah.
We said it on the heroes. There are millions of heroes out there at this point created, but probably there's more villains than there are heroes. Because the hero in their story always will perpetuate. They'll be there every month, every week, every year, depending on what the release is. But you need to sort of scroll around and have infinitely more villains, because it can't be the same villain every time, because justice has to at some point at least appear to be done. So a villain might have to disappear for a little while and go to a prison. So there's a much wider pool to pick from.
Yes. So we'll start with what we. Again, it's a hard one to say, but when you say it properly, it's like, what do we like about evil?
Yeah.
But we'll go with what is it that makes a compelling bad guy, and one that you either want to see them get their comeuppance, or may even, like to see what the fuck are they going to do next.
So for me, villain. Let's say go with villain category A. And if my favourite villain category is, I want my villain. I want to understand why my villain is doing what they are doing, and to a degree, I want to feel like they have a good reason for doing it. Now, I tippy toe around this a little bit because I guess arguably the very basic idea of that would be they're robbing a bank because they want money. I do understand that, but I mean more of and I'll jump straight into a specific villain, Magneto in the XMen universe. He is part of a group of people, mutants, who have been oppressed, treated like second-class citizens, often attacked verbally and physically, hunted to a degree, and for a large part of certainly 70s and onwards publication, Magneto's villainy drove from, no, you've treated us bad. We just wanted to be treated like everyone else. And actually, no, now we're fighting back. we're not going to be oppressed by humans. We are a minority, and we're not going to be treated like this. And I think at that basic functionality, you're going, I actually agree with you. You are right. And then what makes them the compelling villain for me is seeing what they do with what is potentially a just argument and seeing how that becomes unjust. So how
Yeah.
they actually end up starting to perpetrate the things that they were so against, and that kind of flipping of it. But I want their initial origin reason to be something that I go, yes, I can see why they're doing this, and to a certain degree I can initially sympathize or empathize with why you feel like you need to take this next step.
Yeah, it's the Thanos theory.
Yeah,
You know, why he wants half the population to die is because we're overpopulated and shit's
yeah,
struggling because of it. Are his methods the correct ones? Probably not. The carnage that he caused to get the Infinity Stone so he could do the click, questionable. But
movie Thanos is fantastic for this, isn't he?
yeah,
Because you're right. Like there's a real argument, and I mean I've joked about it before, but I do think it's an interesting topic to talk about anyone with, because everyone on the bloody planet's in these movies now. But that question of was Thanos right? So for the good of everyone, wiping out half of every living creature in the universe would mean that the other half would live in better conditions, no suffering for a very, very long period of time. And you go, okay, at the very basic level, yes, he's it's almost that idea of would you sacrifice yourself so that your loved ones would live on and live on well?
yeah,
And you kind of go, yeah, I would. So yeah, maybe Thanos was right. And then you kind of dig into it a little bit further and go, but would you let someone else murder someone else in your family so that you could live on? And you go, no, I wouldn't. And then you go, Hitler liked a bit of indiscriminate killing. And then the more you dig, and I think with the Thanos character, the more he kind of digs into it. I mean, he stays very much at that base. He saw suffering on his own planet. He saw his own planet get decimated. So he's driven by this. I don't ever want to see this again. And this would have been a solution. And you go, yeah, okay, but it's not a solution that works, or it's not a solution that is functionally good, right, or just, and that
yeah.
is why you become the villain. But yeah, a great example of showing villainy with at least a nugget of justifiable reason for why they're doing it.
Yeah, because it's the thing with especially film Thanos. It's the fact that it's a random who is going to die works in
Yeah,
Thanos' favor because there's no, oh, I'm just going to get rid of the people that I don't like,
yeah,
which again is another bit that's very much a Thanos good.
yeah,
It's indiscriminate. It's half of you are all going
yeah,
to fuck off. Doesn't matter which half. We're not picking sides. Half of you are fucking off.
yeah,
It's not that sort of Hitler level of no, I don't like that type of person. They can
yeah.
fuck off. So it's still that moral sort of
Well,
would you?
and while we're on like Hitler and Nazis, let's go into another landmine of a conversation where you go, whatever your belief system was. Say you believe in Christianity, you look at the stories of the Bible, and at some point, if to be believed, God decides to wipe out most of the planet, taking the animals in two by two onto Noah's Ark, and you
Yeah,
go, okay, if you believe in that, wouldn't you lean a little bit into like Thanos is just doing probably a nicer version of that in the theory, and but yeah, you keep coming back and going. It asks an interesting question. We said this a bit about the heroes. We said a lot of the heroes that we particularly like are ones where we feel a bit of connectivity. Now, I probably don't connect with Thanos quite so much, but I think a good villain allows us to ask those questions about ourselves and our society, because they are asking those difficult questions in such a way that you go, oh, would I do that? Like,
yeah,
do I think they're right? And yeah, very powerful. Before we go on this bit, because I think there is more to say. I want to give credit to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for this, because I knew the Thanos story from the comic books, and I don't necessarily like wholesale changes to the comic book lore for the movies, and I do actually really like the Thanos story in the comic book. But in the comic book, it's because he's in love with death.
Yeah.
And he decides to, as a romantic gesture, wipe out half of the life in the universe. And I do think, as interesting that is, and I do think it's a great story in the comic books. I think they did a wonderful job with that in the cinematic universe. I think it was a much better idea to frame this as I say, posing this interesting question in what is just could be just a glitzy action movie genre. And I think that's what the Marvel movies do so well, is I think they actually take good care of their characters, and this particularly being one of them.
Yeah, and it's the thing, I obviously said with X-Men as well, there's that whole sort of, especially at the time when X-Men started, would have been at the point of the civil rights movements and things like that. So, you know, it has also got a level in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that. I mean, at base level, Professor X was Martin Luther King, and Magneto's Malcolm X.
Yeah,
They're both coming at the same problem, and actually coming at it from the same direction, but it's how
different
they
methods.
think the solution should be done. And a fantastic way of telling it. And I said I want them to have a kernel of something that I think is interesting, but yeah, maybe that's the truth of it. For the bulk part, my favourite villains make me ask questions about the world I live in. Make me ask difficult questions about the world I live in.
So with that, you've also then got, which is predominantly more a Batman thing, just carnage for the sake of carnage, the fucking criminally insane, that there's no real rhyme or reason why they do what they do, other than because they find it fun. Yeah. And I love me a crazy mental villain that's just there to cause utter carnage. Because we all know my favorite being Joker, but you look at like the Riddler, you look at Scarecrow. There's never they're doing it because they want to change the world for whatever reason. They are just there because they want to cause carnage, because they are showing, in a roundabout way, and this probably was never intended, but it's more of a thing now than especially back in the 80s or the 30s, the effects of mental health on people.
Yeah. That the world is hard, and this is the repercussions of potentially mistreating people within that world, or not mistreating, probably even a little bit extreme, maybe just not giving people the time and the credit that they deserve during, and you leave someone on their own, or you put them in a corner and you point at them. This can be your ultimate conclusion of that. And like you put in belief systems like religions, and you put in legal systems like the laws that we have in differ in every single country. But actually, what happens if someone just goes, don't give a fuck about any of that stuff?
Yeah.
I am me. I am doing what I want to do when I want to do it. I'm going to be led by my base compulsions. Whatever my brain tells me to do next, I am going to do next. And they for me fit into a very interesting category, especially the Joker for this is the scariest villains. Like go back to Thanos. Thanos wipes out half the universe. I'm not really scared of Thanos. Like, well, Avengers can go and deal with him, but like if I was said, like, if you had to be put in a room with Thanos or the Joker, I'd go stick me in a room with Thanos, because I feel like Thanos, I could have a conversation with him. I mean, he could destroy me like with his pinky finger. Yeah. But I feel like I could have a conversation with him. Whereas you put me in with a Joker, like I'd be racked with abject fear from the first second, because there's no reasoning with a human being in this case who sees the world totally different to me. Like, as in, from second to second, can perceive the world in a way that and won't have that. We use moral compass a lot in the heroes, but any compass to say this is the norm, because
Yeah.
there is no norm for these characters. The norm is whatever is affecting them or impacting them at that time. And I share your love with Joker, and I think Joker doesn't actually fit, in theory, with my first category of like kind of what makes a great villain. But that's why I kind of went with category A, because I think you're right. I think he fits into this kind of chaotic, criminally insane, unpredictable version of the world. And I think with him especially, but with a lot of the people like that, where I think they're so effective is we've all got that side to us. We've all had the thoughts every now and again of going, what if I didn't have my own belief system, my own moral compass? What if I wasn't afraid of going to prison? What if I just let myself go and let every urge that I had fly out there? And that is what and I think Joker being the best example, I think that's what it is. It's scary.
We've all been there. We've all had that proper shit day at work where, you know, you could quite happily grab the nearest blunt object and literally go around and smash everyone's skull in the office in.
Well, we said it on the top 5, didn't we? That killing joke.
One bad day.
One bad day, yeah.
And that's the thing. That's what those characters. There's a few of them, but they can sort of be the more interesting stories because you're not fixed to they're doing it because of this. How would they do that? Or another category we'll go on in a minute, like with the mobsters and the gangs and the sort of that sort of mentality, where we know why they're doing that.
They don't have a purpose or a goal that naturally people often show.
Yeah. So they make the most interesting stories because you can do anything with them, and they can go anywhere and do by any means necessary. They're not going to be sort of kept to
conventional sets
reason.
Of rules.
Yeah.
I mean, like, one of the things that I think they do is I think they allow our heroes to be more interesting as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we said, like, you know, you want to kind of get into the hero's head and go, what would I do? And naturally, I think often those stories follow that. You know, if they're done, let's say, effectively, if I think they would do A, B, C, D, and E, then probably the best way to tell me that story is get him to do A, B, C, D, and E. Whereas when you throw these chaos characters in, like, it asks me as the reader, what the fuck would I do? And I think it allows them to then, with those heroes, put them into what the fuck would I do? I mean, Batman and Joker, we talk about them a lot, but I think Batman and Joker show this of the Batman, I shall not kill, I do not kill. For the most part, for a lot of his rogues gallery, you can go, fair. You know, like, I wouldn't. And you know, you stop that person who's doing a bit of a madcap caper crime, just robbing a bank, you can see it. Whereas Joker is that one that brings out that side where you go, oh, you know, that not killing thing. You know, this guy, he might be the one. You know, he might be the time to wet the beak on killing people. It allows the writer, it allows the heroes to be a lot more interesting, I think, because it's throwing an X factor and go, what the fuck are you going to do with this, Mr. Hero, whoever you are? I've got a question about the Joker. You know, I love the Joker. I know you love the Joker. Is there anything dangerous about the Joker? Is there a possibility that Joker is... We talked about anti-heroes in the last one. Are there times where people like the Joker too much, whereas Joker almost becomes anti-hero, hero-y in some people's eyes? And is that a dangerous thing? And I know it's a broad question, but I thought, bollocks, let's go for it. Let's get deep into the psyche of it.
So, yes and no. So I will revert to a couple of years ago when the original Suicide Squad film came out and everyone was giving it all the big, oh, we want to be just like Joker and Harley. And I'm
Yeah,
like, read the fucking source material, you really
yeah,
fucking don't. There's, for a casual or anyone that's only seen the films, it is very easy to go, Joker great, isn't he amazing? I love the Joker. There is so much that, like, the likes of us, because we have read the stuff,
yeah.
we're in it, that we know, no, look, Harley was manipulated. She was a fucking lovely little young
Yep.
shrink that came in, and her first job was Joker, and
What a
he
first job that was. I thought my first job of peeling potatoes in a restaurant was shit.
yeah, he completely fucking annihilates her brain,
Yep.
turns her against everyone, and makes her have Stockholm syndrome that he is the greatest. He's an abusive partner, and it takes like 15 years of stories for her to finally break that, to then actually then find a little bit of happiness and go off to be with Ivy.
Yeah.
You know, but to the norms, because they've just seen an hour and a half film,
Yeah.
think that them two are the perfect fucking
It's
Romeo and
that
Juliet story.
yeah, it's that anarchy, it's the true romance kind of riding off and going, wouldn't it be cool if we did that? And you go,
Yeah,
yeah, as I said, that little nugget is in us of going, what if we let all our inhibitions go and we did it? But yeah, that's my only fear for characters like this, is because he's so compelling that
yeah,
actually he can become too compelling, because people might go, oh, actually, yeah, fuck it, let's do it then. Like, because when I say let all my inhibitions go, I probably mean, do you know what? I'm going to do another 5 shots from the top row of the bar that I know I really shouldn't tonight. And that's probably the limit that we should probably do with our inhibitions, rather than going, oh, yeah, do you know what? I am going to take that blunt instrument. I am just going to murder everyone in this room. Freddy Krueger, not comic book related at all, but I was actually having a conversation with someone and in a similar kind of vein about him the other day. And I mean, I own Joker t-shirts. I know you've got a Joker tattoo, and I think I do love the character, but I don't love him as in I'd love to hang around with him. And Freddy Krueger was a sort of similar allegory to me, because the person was talking about what, oh, he's brilliant though, isn't he? And I'm going, well, define what you mean by brilliant. Do you mean that he is a very, very vile and horrible character that is maybe kind of aesthetically sort of visually striking, and you love to hate him? Or are you saying you love him because he killed kids?
yeah,
And I think that's sometimes a dangerous thing with people presenting this well, is that does it sometimes lean us into forgetting the root cause of going, I mean, Joker has fucking killed, probably comic book wise, thousands and thousands of people randomly, but not in the Thanos snap my fingers. He's had intent as he's doing it, but he
yeah.
killed them randomly because they were in front of him at the time. And you go, I probably shouldn't. I've got to kind of keep my balance on we said what makes a good villain. What do we like about them? Yeah, it is hard. It's hard to find that balance of going, when do we step too far, and when does the I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I want to jump like really far ahead at this point, just because of the bit I just said of one of the things I really fucking hate in villains is when they turn them into the hero, when they
Yeah,
try and do a redemption for someone irredeemable. And don't get me wrong, I like the odd story with where like maybe Batman's had to team up with the Joker for some very, very kind of wild, far-fetched reason to get them there. But they're still enemies, and Joker isn't a good guy. And I think
yeah,
that's what I want, that clear line always to go. Even if when we look at the Killing Joke and you see some of the backstory for him, and you kind of you can sympathise with some of the stuff that happened at the beginning, the route, but it's to never forget that actually they're irredeemable because they
yeah.
have done so many bad things, even if you can see the road to how they got there.
Well, this is the thing. It's like you saying there about like the redemption arc sort of thing. It's like Catwoman and Batman being married. Even on her wedding day, she has to go and steal
Yeah,
stuff because she can't stop the urge of being a thief.
Yeah.
You know, there are some that do have the redeeming thing. You look at like anti-heroes, as we said, look at Punisher, look at Spawn, in a way, look at Deadpool. In some worlds, these are would-be villains.
Yeah.
But then, you know, they're the anti-hero because what they then go on to do is just. What you don't see a lot of is them doing it with the bigger baddies and the bigger
Yeah.
villains.
Yeah, your marquee your main eventers in villainy, to nick from the wrestling terminology.
Yeah, they're not gonna have this thing. As you said, you get something like what's it called? The White Knight, I think it is, Batman
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
where basically it's a weird reversal where Joker's the good guy and Batman's the bad guy. And yeah, it's a fucking wonderful read, but I don't want it long term. It
No.
makes for an interesting take.
Yeah. It's kind of I'll dip into that world just to see what it would have looked like. But
Yeah.
yes, don't make this my world, because I don't want to live in a world where the Joker's the good guy.
Yeah, but it's the same as you said. It was a really good fucking callback actually for like Freddy,
Yeah.
and not so much for like Jason and things like that. But there is that, especially 80s horror slasher films. The killer
Yeah.
was the selling point.
Yeah, and you're actually kind of it sounds terrible, but to a degree, I think certainly with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I think sometimes comic books can almost sort of tiptoe into this of going. You go and watch Nightmare on Elm Street 6, you're not going to see the heroes win. You're going to see how Freddy kills the good guys, the innocent people, and yeah, it's a different thing. But yeah, I think it's always keeping in our minds of going, this guy's the bad guy. He's not a good guy. He's the bad guy.
But the thing is, you can be compelled to follow that because even when you look at like TV, you look at like say The Sopranos, which is one of the biggest fucking TV shows of the last 30 years. Which of them is the good guy?
Yeah.
They're all cunts, but they're all different levels of cunt. But you're compelled to watch them.
Oh, and
because
partly that's us as a viewer, isn't it? And I think like I think seeing the bad guy story is brilliant. And that you're right. There is no good guy in that. There might be someone who you think is the least worst.
Yeah.
But they're all bad guys. But I think it is. It's just and I think it always has been. I think it always will be. I think it's just a dangerous line that writers and creators have to be really careful with, because you don't want them to ever become the good guy, because that's not the point of them, is it? The point is that they're bad guys, and you might want to see behind the scenes, and you might want to see what makes them be what they are. But yeah, just really problematic for me if it ever tips into that balance where they start becoming revered and hero-esque with it, because you go, no, they're shits.
Yeah,
they have to. Star Wars is one I always go back to on this, and certainly in recent years. But you look at Darth Vader and you go, at the end of Return of the Jedi, spoilers for what is probably a 40-odd-year-old movie now. At the end of it, like Darth Vader sees the error of his ways. But what I quite liked about that is that, yeah, he did, but he was still a shit. Like Luke got to kind of go, I knew there was some good in you, and it was nice at the end to see that good in you. But I wouldn't ever want anyone to think, oh, that's fine then, because he learnt the error of his ways in the end. He fucking wiped out a planet. Yeah. He's irredeemable. But yes, I don't mind there being that bit where you kind of go, but you know what? At one point, he realised that he'd done really bad things. It doesn't make him good, though, and I think that's something. And I see it a lot in media now, and I think it's something that I often see people get wrong, of going, let's make the villain do all of these things. Let's ramp it up. Oh, they're getting popular now. Oh, well, actually, let's make him a good guy. And you go, no, they should never be a good guy, because you can't undo all that bad stuff they did. different, as you say, with Catwoman. Catwoman generally over the years has been a thief. And yeah, you can argue, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. But let's be honest, her crimes against humanity were few and far between, and generally rich people. Not saying that rich people don't have rights, but it's been less affecting of people. Whereas once you start to get to people who have murdered, killed deliberately, you go, unless you believe in the criminal justice system and they do 25 years in prison, then you go, okay, you served your time.
Yeah.
Maybe, but not just they did a good thing, so they're all right now. Venom being a big one for me, and I know they've done dramatic things to the character Venom and the people that are inside the Venom suit, but Venom killed loads of people, ate their brains. The end. They're a villain. Yeah. And I've read some really good Venom comics in the last few years. Donny Cates done a run recently, which was really good. But I almost didn't want it to be Venom. I wanted it to be another character, because all the time I'm reading it, I go, "This is a villain. Should be a villain and shouldn't be doing good things."
The problem with something like Venom, which actually was going to be something I was going to go on a bit later, is when they used for both sides, which is something that there is a lot with comic books.
Yeah,
is. Because I was going to go on about it, like when we do teams and stuff and things like that. Because obviously you've got like the Suicide Squad, and things like that, where it's using them to do good because it's evil versus evil type rah rah rah, and how that can, depending on where you come into it, whether you see it as they're the heroes because you've come in at Venom. You've not read Spider-Man, or you come in at Suicide Squad and don't know about the fact that Killshot or Deadshot and Cat Boomerang and all this sort of absolute bastards, and you're just coming because the movie of the week is fucking Suicide Squad, and you've got a thing for what's the face who plays Harley Quinn, Margie Robbo, and there is that problem. But I think it's because, as we said, with someone like Joker, they are so compelling that you can do stuff with, because how many issues of Batman specials are either named the Joker or all cover picture is just the Joker, doesn't say Batman on it anywhere. When you read it, it's going to be Batman's going to be in there and he'll be fighting Batman. But if you were a kid going into a comic book shop or a Waterstones or whatever, and you see the covers, it's Joker.
Yeah, he's the one that jumps out at you.
There is that problem that we do have, that the cult of using bad guys because they can tell the best stories has become a thing, especially I'd say in the last 20 years more than things, obviously, with the likes of Suicide Squad, as I said, that being a much bigger thing now than it ever was.
I guess we probably started to tiptoe in it with the rise of the anti-hero, didn't we? I think when the anti-hero started to become popular, I think it was only a matter of time before the real anti-hero, the villain, started to get a foothold. And it probably reflects to a degree society, doesn't it? I think maybe the thoughts and feelings and where people's mindsets are may well have led the creative, the companies actually more than the creators, to say people love. Go back to Deadpool. Like, Deadpool was a villain when he came in, was always intended to be a villain, but people started to like him, so they went, let's make him a hero. And Dad doesn't necessarily always do heroic things, so that's probably what keeps him into the anti-hero camp. But yeah, that kind of lean into the villain being the star of the show. And as I say, the villains should be great, should be compelling, but they should be that vehicle that moves that story forward, and it should tell us something interesting about ourselves and the hero. But just as I say, just cautiously wonder sometimes whether whether we can fall into that trap of making the villain the hero, even though they are fucking horrible.
Yeah. So sort of going back to where we started with, the
Not like
other
us to
sort
meander, is it?
of, I know, but another sort of standard bear of villains are the mob/mob boss types, aka Penguin, Kingpin, countless others.
Yeah.
Um, does obviously these are very tropey sort of, because especially in America there is the history of the mob, especially sort
Yeah.
of 60s, 70s, obviously further back in Italy as well. But these crime family ones, I normally notice that in these these are normally very much the villain of the week ones. They will turn
Yeah.
up, they will do a run with them just to break up runs between the more interesting
They
villains.
often allow Batman and Spider-Man, for example, because I know they have a lot of these in their Rose Gallery, to have a lot of random people to punch, so they can get maybe a bit more action scenes. You know, when you create
Yeah,
that mob family, you can add in a lot of um, mobster number 17 that you need to get through to get to a door. So yeah, it allows for maybe a bit more action oriented, getting them to do sort of cool stuff bits. But I like them. I do. Like they are. I think they are a necessary thing in the world of the storytelling, and there is something. You're right about like this being a bit more of an American trope, but the gangs, the old school gangs, not them maybe modern gangs, but yeah, that kind of Al Capone-esque one. I mean, quite
yeah.
often they'll even go down to the generic stuff if they're all still using Tommy guns and got like the brimmed hats and stuff.
Fedoras.
Yeah, but I do find them um, interesting. You know, and actually, I'll tell you about interesting. I enjoy them maybe more than find them interesting. I think
Yeah.
they're a good they're a required element.
And obviously more of a Marvel thing than the DC thing, but the fact that you can have, especially like with Spider-Man and Daredevil and Punisher, because they're all set technically in the same version of New
Yeah,
York, you can have the same mob boss be in all three.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it does make for easier storytelling. And as I said, it can go through a few different franchises as well,
Well,
that
you have
you
some
don't have to do
standouts.
the explain the who they are and why they're there and everything, because you're like, oh, I've read him in Spider-Man.
But you think you have some standout versions, don't you? I mean, you mentioned the Penguin, and in the Marvel one, I guess your standout is Kingpin. And I
Yeah,
think like with those, there's probably a lot more time and effort invested in fleshing them out. They've got more to them and they've been around for a lot longer. But also in that kind of category of it, it allows you, as you say, to have a bit more that filling in the week. So when
the
you've used
Falcones.
yeah, when you've used like Penguin for a little while, or in the Marvel universe Kingpin, and you want to put them on the shelf for a little while to maybe kind of reinvigorate them, then yes, you can just scroll through, so yeah, some Falcones, or you just put in like a kind of a new head of an organization, and that gives your hero something for anywhere from like let's say 1 to 12 issues if it's going on in the background, a new person to focus on whilst you kind of forget about Penguin Kingpin, so that when they come back it's a bit more impactful again. You know, like ultimately when that mob boss is taken down and you think you get that moment where you go, yes, the mob has been taken down. But of course, like probably in real life as well, is that mobs, if the head of a mob gets taken down, someone just replaces them, either
Yeah,
someone from within that organization or from outside who comes and takes it over. And I guess shows that futility of, if you're looking at that level of crime, it's it's unbeatable for a singular hero. It's a societal thing rather than a singular. You know, you don't biff them on the nose and then that's it. That's that crime type gone. That crime type will perpetuate, and it will always be there. And shows the need for people to stand up and be heroes,
yeah.
because there will always be that kind of level of threat to fight.
Yeah, and then obviously we have, so it's very much more a Marvel thing than a DC thing, but DC do have their version of it. The giant big bad overlord, your death. Can't remember what his name is in Marvel, but it's the thing for Justice League.
Your dark side, so
Dark Side.
apocalypse for the
Yeah,
mutant universe and things like that. Yeah, you're kind of your uber big bad boss end villain of a computer game sort of level of villainy.
yeah. The mega Uberlord, where usually these are the ones that the teams take down.
And sometimes even beyond the teams, isn't it? Like you get everyone, like everyone
Yeah,
in that universe has to team up to like, take on the insurmountable odds that comes with this high level of power, or the artifact that they're currently using is
yeah.
unstoppable.
Galactus. That's the one
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking
Sorry, yeah,
of as well.
Galactus. Yeah,
That sort of mega thing that's just they don't have a reason or a purpose. They just want to destroy. They usually don't come in with anything other than Earth's in the way. We need to destroy it for our own collection.
yeah.
And
They're
so
very ooh ah, aren't they? Like they're very
yeah,
kind of. They often have that. Like they get introduced and go oh, and then you find out their powers and go oh, how will our heroes ever beat these? I'd say very much more your cookie cutter villain, aren't they? They are
yeah,
they're the rather than the villain of the week. I'm going to go. I always like to equate things to other things. This is in Buffy lore. They are your big bad, and then like your kind of your penguins are your jobbers of the week to get you to that end point, which is the big bad story. Um, I think there's some really interesting. I keep going back to interesting because I think interesting is the wrong word for things like this. I think there are some visually good versions of this. I think there are some that they've managed to tell better and more interesting stories with, but these lean into your kind of event things, and I must
yeah,
admit I've never been such an event guy. I'm almost like okay, hopefully we'll learn something interesting about the villains when they're facing about the heroes when they're facing insurmountable odds. But let's get through this story and let's get back to maybe a more personal villain story than what we see in these. So yeah, I would say that they're not my favourite sort of villain. But I think we talk about necessity again. I think you do need that. You do need the power ramp up to show that the heroes will need to team up. They will need to work with others.
yeah.
They can't just do this all on their own.
The other trope that is another easy one that does get done a lot is the alternative version
Oh god,
of the
yeah.
hero.
I'd actually
Most
forgotten all about
noticeably,
that. Yeah.
Red Hulk or Carnage in Venom's case. You know, Black Adam in Superman's
Shazam,
case.
yeah, Captain Marvel, yeah.
Shazam. There's it is one of those of oh right, we've built this guy. What should we do? We'll have his
Opposite.
mirror image.
Yeah. Yeah, and funny enough, like as I say, I'd totally forgotten about that, and I'm really glad you brought it up because we talked about legacy heroes and sidekicks in the heroes one, and I guess to a degree this is your villain version of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, like this is the natural extension of them. I mean, even I guess the biggest, or not maybe the most famous, but the most on the nose version of this is in Superman, where they have Bizarro, and he
yeah,
literally is the opposite. To the fact that he even talks opposite, like if he says good, he means bad, and things like that. I mean, it was very kind of written at a time, very kind of generic, but yes, you do. You have those the opposite version. For Star Trek fans, it's when they go into another universe and find their evil doppelganger, and they are both evil and have a beard. It's that sort of thing, isn't it?
yeah. With these, a lot of the times, I'm not normally a fan of them
No.
because other than a few that they then flush out, so like a Shazam or Black Adam, or even, I wouldn't even say Carnage really, because even Carnage is pretty bland.
Pretty
They
one note, isn't he?
usually
Yeah.
they're usually pretty one note, pretty bland. They are, oh, we are literally you, but the other scale, the other
Yeah.
side of the scale. Um,
They asked, I think they posed less interesting questions than someone like a Joker does. You know, when we said about
yeah,
the chaotic villain and maybe the other side of the coin, but really the other side of the coin, as in they're totally different. I think these ones, yes, they just. Uh, I talk about cheap storytelling, but there is something that I think generally we do find interesting in that mirror universe, alternative universe theory, but it doesn't hold my attention for long. I kind of want to get him in, see him, and go, oh yeah, look at them with their beard. They look really different with their beard. Oh, and they're evil. Yeah, get that story done, then move on. Like once I think I've had the visual and all this sort of thing, I don't often see storytellers do great things with it, and I don't think we took one of the things I'm a big fan of in all and any media is that idea of holding a mirror up to yourself and going,
mm,
what would I do in a bad situation? Whereas I don't think this is holding a mirror up because I don't think it shows what I would do in a bad situation. It shows the opposite of me. It almost shows what I wouldn't do in a bad situation because it's
yeah.
the opposite of me.
And the thing is, a lot of the time, I will say these usually do come with good fight scenes,
Yeah, yeah,
because that's what the bread and butter is for these type of villains, is because they are of equal as your hero, you get interesting fights.
yeah.
So depending on who it is and what the art design and all that is, will depend on whether you'll enjoy it, because you need a good artist that can do good fighting
Well, and for,
stuff.
for the fight and the action thing, we talk about the movies, and I know that's a big thing. That, but of course, in the comic books, there's a lot in the drawing, fighting, and yeah, I think you are spot on. It allows for your action scenes to be maybe more interesting and more hyped up, and quite often when they do these, the villainous version is stronger. So it does, I guess, pose that question to the hero of going, how do I beat myself knowing that I'm trying to fight that slightly better or slightly more powerful rather than better version of myself? So I guess it does pose an interesting question in that regard. But yeah, leans heavily into your story is ooh, here is them in a different color costume
Yeah.
up to they're going to fight and the fight scene is probably good, but yeah, maybe just not enough substance in between for me, and I don't often want to see him again. I often want it to be kind of the once and done. Yeah, okay, you've done that, now move these characters on, and let's never speak of this ever again.
Yeah. Um, so, what is it that we don't like about villains?
I mean, I touched on earlier, like I really don't like when they try to turn villains into good guys,
Yeah.
but um, I found it quite hard to consider what I don't like because there are so many of them, and I reckon if I wrote down on a piece of paper villains I really liked, they'd probably fit a type. And if I wrote down villains that I don't like, a lot of them would have come down to just bad design. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily there's a villainy type. They fall more into the category of just lazy creation, i.e., they were created for one
Generic.
story just to fill a gap. Yeah, very generic, and don't really have anything compelling about them other than
Mm.
that they do villainy. And but even then, as much as I'd say that I don't like them, I do understand the requirement for them because not everyone can be an absolute zinger, a home run, and you kind of do need your cannon fodder ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what I don't. I don't know if there is a villainy type that I don't like. Is the
It's the
honest
thing.
truth.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, as I said, the negative version of them, or the generic crime family stuff, is generic, and doesn't always make for the best stories. But as you said, you can't have Batman versus Joker every week. You can't
Yeah,
have the Guardians versus Thanos every week. You can't have big bad versus big good
yeah.
every single issue. So you've
Well,
got to have that to break up and to then make the your more favorite ones more special
yeah.
because you're not getting it all the time.
Well, when I was thinking about this, one of the ones that kept popping into my head, and probably because of us doing it for the show and doing a deep dive, is I kept coming back to Firefly from the Nightfall arc, and I kept going, I didn't really like him. Why didn't I like him? And all I kept coming back to of going, I just found him a bit boring and a bit generic. And maybe that's the truth, is that yes, in theory, I think the villains I don't like are just boring, generic villains. But I do see the need for them. Like we said, there were probably other villains that I'd have preferred to see in that arc that they could have done more with. But actually, if they had stuck in another ventriloquist-esque villain that really got really interested me, of going, yeah, maybe I did. Maybe you just needed that change of pace, though. Maybe you did need that episode, that issue where you just go, okay, just I need to see you punch someone out, and I don't want to be too invested in that person you're punching out, because my ultimate goal here is just to see the good guy get a quick and easy win.
Yeah. So obviously, again, we touched on it in Heroes. Teams. This is a weird one with villains, because the thing is, you've got two types. You've got your original style, so the League of or the League of Evil and the Legion of Doom and
Injustice League,
yeah,
yeah,
that are usually chucked together to then go against a Justice League or the Avengers, to do something big. And again, it's one of those of they serve a purpose. They're good for a specials run. Get everyone in together, because if you've got all your heroes together, you need all your villains together. And you can do a bit of cross pollination. You've then got obviously your proper teams that aren't the ones thrown together. So in XMen, the evil mutants team together.
The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Yeah.
That
some very very. They don't name them very well, do they?
No.
I think that's something we've got across quite well in the four we've named so far. Of going, oh god, you wouldn't walk up to a non-comic book fan and go, yeah, read this. Oh yeah, what's it about? It's about the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They go, shit, did they give a crayon to a kid and ask them to name a team? Like,
yeah, and again, they serve more of a purpose because they are a team together. That you need to have them to go against X-Men because they're always together. What we have, as I said, is much more of a more modern thing. Is the likes of the Suicide Squad, where they are chucking bad guys together, not to be evil, but to be good as bad guys and do the joining up.
Being forced to be good in a lot of cases, certainly things like Suicide Squad. To almost
Birds of Prey as well.
Why would we send a hero out to do this when we can send a villain out to do it? Because if we lose them, fuck it, we don't care. They're a villain anyway.
With these, because I have read quite a bit of Suicide Squad. I've read a few bits of Birds of Prey. I find they are very much hit and miss with the actual quality of them. I don't know whether it's because I'm not 100% behind why they do it, or whether I just think it's like lazy story writing of just these guys are all popular from these other things. Let's put them together. But where do you stand on them?
Well, I mean, I was a big fan of teams when we did Heroes. I mean, I'm more of a fan of teams of heroes than you are. I think with the villainy teams, if I look at the two kind of camps that we looked at there, I mean, things like the Injustice League, the Masters of Evil, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and things like that, they're a necessary storytelling trope at a certain point. I would say that wholly, I do not like those teams. but I guess I like them being used every now and again, because I think if you've got a group of heroes, sometimes you need a group of villains that are more powerful, again, to set the peril. But they're all just throwaway, aren't they? Because there's no, other than beating those heroes, there's no real reason, and normally it is the arch enemy of each singular hero. Um,
Yeah.
why I think I don't like them though, and I have seen this done, but um, you don't see behind the curtain. You kind of don't often see how they get together. You don't see them hanging out together, and probably with good reason, because they have no reason to hang out together other than this, and like they're probably not going down the pub together after work and stuff like that. They're probably going off and doing villainous things. So I don't really, I don't see the connectivity like I would in like a family team kind of hero comic book, and inevitably, I think more often than not, these teams fail because these people can't work together. You know,
Yeah.
you put Joker and Lex Luthor together. Um, the only connectivity they've got is that they're both villains, but actually they see the world absolutely differently, and both are probably much more self-serving about what they do than a hero would be. So I think inevitably these teams are always going to fail for that. Now, can that be done and done interestingly? Yes, but it's done so often, and I think it's very hard to tell me something that, and again, something that will pay off. You know, if you get that in a hero story, so when one of the teams has a bit of a falling out on a mission, you know they're staying together, and you're following that story for the next sort of 25 issues, let's say, and they are a family. So you're actually going, okay, how do these people get past this problem they've had?
Yeah.
Whereas when it is Joker and Lex Luthor, they don't need to get past that problem. They just either try and kill each other and move on, or they don't try and kill each other and they move on. So I think the team lacks interest from that side. So yeah, it then just becomes a vehicle to move the story ahead. Suicide Squad and things like that. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I quite liked old Suicide Squad, and when I say old Suicide Squad, again, post Crisis on Infinite Earth, they did a run of it when it was a new, fresh idea,
Yeah.
and I think it was very interesting because of its new, fresh idea, and I think it did allow them to. Quite often, they played in the very low level villain world, and I think actually it's an interesting thing to do, and it's something I'll buy into and probably want to read more of when it really is your low level ones, because you can do anything with them, and maybe they come from a petty crime background, so potentially there is a redemption arc for them there, but
Yeah.
actually the core isn't necessarily to redeem all these people. Sometimes it is to show how self-serving someone can be. So to get 2 years off of their prison sentence, they'll go and do something good, but if you said to them go and do something good, they go, no, fuck off, I'm a bad guy, I don't do good stuff. So there's something interesting in that, but I find it very hard to stay with those stories. And if anything, I think movie Suicide Squad, where I have a big problem with that is, again, taking a lot of disgusting characters, and they should be disgusting because they've done horrible, horrible things, and kind of going by the end of it, they're all right though, aren't they? Look, they did one good thing. And because I said that's something I don't want to see in my villain stories, I don't want to see them redeemed to where the audience goes, oh yeah, no, they're fine, they did a good thing. I think they leave me cold because of that. I'd much rather. So the concept of Suicide Squad is that you either die on the mission, you successfully complete the mission, but if you try and cheat, you get your head blown off.
Yeah.
I think actually I like it when they don't succeed or they get their head blown off because they can't stop. They can't get out of their own way of being villains.
Yeah.
That's the interesting villainous team thing for me. Not seeing them do good things and be better. So yeah, polar opposite for me. Love the hero teams. Very, very iffy on the villain teams.
So obviously with villains, obviously, does the level of hero make you like a villain more or less? Because I would say there are a few standouts in Marvel for me of villains that I actually would like, and if they did spin-off stuff or more stuff with them, I would be like, oh yeah, I'm on that.
Yeah.
The likes of Loki, the likes of Thanos, those sort of interesting characters, but with Marvel a lot of the time is I'm there for the heroes.
Yeah.
With DC, again, most of the time it is more about the heroes than any of the villains, because the villains are, as you say, they come and go. Obviously, Batman is an exception and a box on its own and away from everything, because
Yeah. Yeah.
you could quite easily give me fucking books of just what the Joker got up to on a random day inside Arkham Asylum, and I'd be like, I'll read that. What sort of crazy shit's he getting up to? But with the majority of the villains, is it your like of the hero that compels you to go, they work or they don't work?
I don't think so. I think a villain is good. A villain should be compelling despite the hero. And as I say, I think more often than not, the villain should be a vehicle to make the hero more interesting. So, yeah, you should be able to take like a Z-list hero and make him interesting to me because of how he has to interact with that villain. So yeah, I think the villains make the heroes more than the heroes make the villains for me. I think I'm on the kind of the other side of the coin. I look at you said sort of putting Batman in a box. I mean, there's rogues galleries as they're often called, and I think Batman's got the best villain rogues gallery. I think behind that you've got Spider-Man, and behind that you've actually got the Flash. I think the Flash has got some maybe conceptually not the greatest villains in the world, but I think lots of consecutive writers on the Flash really took time to make his rogues gallery seem important. In the same way as I think the same thing happened with Spider-Man. I think Batman's ones are inherently cooler anyway. I think character design are inherently cooler. But I think because people took time to make those villains interesting in Spider-Man and interesting in Flash, I think my interest in Spider-Man and Flash went up because of their villains. So yeah, the villain can make the hero, and it can make a hero I'm not interested in much more interesting.
I would concur with that. As I said, I have to take Batman out of it because, as I said, that is one of those of chicken or egg. Because Batman is a fucking amazing character, but is that because of how great his villains are, or are his villains that good because the fight with Batman? So yeah, that is an odyssey on its own. That is the perfect blend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I after seeing Infinity the first End games, I went and found the Infinity Gauntlet and read it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I need to do this because of Thanos, and I'm interested in this Thanos storyline. And then I've then gone, right, I need to find more stuff with Thanos in.
Yeah.
And because I've then gone on to the villain, yes, I'm there because of the villain, but I'm more intrigued with how the heroes deal with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you need stronger villains than you do need really stronger heroes.
Yeah.
Because as we said, and not so much as sort of just get your quotas in a tick box, but if you can have heroes that you can see yourself in, or people see themselves in, you can also have the villain that the villains don't. You don't have to be able to see yourself in the villain. No. But you have to know why you hate him.
Yeah, again, I think that villain has to make you, as the reader, who's supposed to be, feeling the affinity with the hero. For me, it's supposed to make me ask questions about myself. So again, it kind of scrolls me back to they make the hero more interesting because you're then asking questions. You're seeing the hero react and ask questions about themselves as to what the villain's making them do, making them feel, and things like that. And I want the only sort of I think group of villains that we haven't touched on that doesn't fit what I just said is, and I do want to give a bit of love out there to all just the absolute cookie cutter trash villains out there. All of the Z list, I would say. And I know we covered that a little bit in Mobsters, and you know they'll have their absolute like foot soldier type thing, but and I do think there is a lot of just random created for one issue or maybe even two panels of comic books, and they've got nothing about them. They've got no backstory. They've got nothing to make them compelling. But there is the equivalent in the wrestling world to the jobber.
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out to some of the jobber villains that are out there, just to say I do have a little soft spot in my heart for them. But I think it's because one day, every time I see a jobber villain, I think one day a very creative person is going to come along and take that jobber and do something absolutely amazing. But rarely do they. You know, you don't get many Barry Horowitzes in this world who go from jobber to star like they did in WWE. But yeah, I do have a lot of love for the throwaway. You know, they're never intended to be anything but the person that Spidey knocks out on the first panel of that comic book, never to be seen again. But again, I think they play an important role in it. Cannon fodder that they are.
Yes. Rest in peace to all of you,
Yeah,
cannon
yeah.
fodders that have died.
They've all got families too. Yeah.
Think of the children.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is us for this week. Again, same as last week. Your thoughts of villains, what makes you like villains, what makes you hate types of villains. You know, everything that we've sort of gone over on here.
And if you want to sneak in a favourite one here or there, because you know, we said it, like our intent here, even though we touched on some we really like, and as ever, we touched on the Joker because we clearly really like him, but we will probably get round to like top fives in these categories, and actually having sort of comments from you guys who are listening, like you know, it probably shifties it up the release schedule a bit more if we know that people out there have got some favourites that we might want to cover a little bit further in our top five, let's say.
Yes, and you know, I feel that some people already know some of my positions on that sort of thing. But it would be quite interesting to get other people's takes because, as I said, it is very much individual sort of things of what makes the people that you like.
Oh, I know we're wrapping up, but I've just remembered something, and I meant to say this all the way through, and it was only as a comparative point to our Heroes one, where I said I absolutely, and I think something that come across to me is quite often what I like is not the opposites as in the Bizarro Superman, but it's in opposite side of it. As much as I hate a hero that is wrapped in a flag, I love a villain that's wrapped in a flag. I do like your, and I don't mean your generic, oh, they're horrible because they're a Johnny Foreigner. Yeah. But I like one who, I like it when, like, the one that keeps coming back in my head is Red Skull. I like someone who is kind of coming at it from a, I mean, wrapped in maybe rather than a nation's flag, but something like a Nazi flag. Or Hydra or AIM or things like that for the purpose of the comic books where they wrap themselves in the flag of a cause. And I think I resonate a bit more with the villainy side of that. But yeah, so I meant to say it earlier that if there were, I think I would be much more interested in seeing Captain Nazi take the beating than I am seeing Captain America give out the beating, going woohoo USA.
Yeah. But that's something, we just completely sort of didn't even touch is things like a Hydra.
Yeah.
Where, Red Skull is technically the big bad. Well, he's not really the big bad in Hydra, is he? He's the most recognised member of Hydra and wants to.
Well, and at certain points he's in charge. At certain points, they very much kind of follow. They're probably a grander version of the mobsters, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like rather than it just being your mafia style level things, you're talking about like big organisations, your secret societies, the ones that are really trying to take over countries and nations. But they do follow that mob formula of going. There will be like a Red Skull at the top. He will have lieutenants with powers, and he'll send them out right the way down to your absolute scummers at the bottom, you know, your foot soldiers who are there just to take the punch. And while we're doing it, I'm just going to mention the AIM people who are in beekeeper suits, just so it reminds me to splicey a picture of them in, because I bloody love them. Because they look so shit. They do. That character design was awful even back then, but oh god, like they do. Going back to my love of the jobber villain, they are my king of the canon for the jobber villains.
They very much are. So that will be us for another week. I don't know what's next week.
I don't know what we're doing next week. Look, we'll leave it on a cliffhanger of going, it's a mystery to you guys, because at the moment it's a mystery to us, but there will be a show next week, and in fact, you know, maybe close to release time, we'll get something out on the Facebook group to let people know what episode 9 is going to be beforehand.
Yes, but until next week, that's been Seddon. I've been Lacey. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, follow the channel and all of the content. Lovely pop unboxings, video game content. Main event being the weekly 2 and a bit hour chat.
5 hour when they let me in charge.
And until next week, goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, and just remember, you can join the Cult of Egg by liking and subscribing to this YouTube channel. We release regular content where we talk about all things geek, all things pop culture, and all things that we're interested in. You can also come along and join the discussion on Facebook groups and Renaissance Cast. And you can join us on our Twitch channel where Stu regularly streams games. And if you'd like to support us, then please follow the link for the Patreon. Thanks very much.